Hello, welcome to this video where we're going to show you how you can synchronize a Mac with a Windows PC. The use case is the following. I have multiple devices and in this demo we'll use a Windows PC and a Mac. And the challenge is that I would like to synchronize files between those two devices. By not doing anything, I'll have to manually synchronize the files between those devices, which will create inefficiency. There's a risk of working on the wrong version of a file, or I'll need to use costly workarounds or consumer-grade solutions that might bring any compliance issues. Preferably, I'd like to use a solution that doesn't require me to change the way that I work today. You see here the typical example. I have an Apple computer where my files are stored in the Documents folder, and I have a Windows computer where my files typically are stored in the My Documents folder. So what do I do to get these two folders synchronized? You start by creating a Syncplicity account. With that Syncplicity account, you can use the free version or the Enterprise Edition. In this demo, we will use the Enterprise Edition. I'm going to add a folder to Syncplicity that will synchronize the files in the Documents folder to Syncplicity. And next, I'm going to synchronize that same folder to the My Documents folder on my Windows computer. From that moment, those two folders are in sync, and any file changed on one folder on one device will be synchronized across all my other devices. I can leave the files where they are. I don't need to move any folders, and there is another advantage that my files are always protected with an additional copy in the cloud, which means I can now do versioning. I can roll back to a previous version, and in case I accidentally lose any files, I can recover them from the cloud. That also helps me to protect myself from ransomware because there is also always a good version in the cloud. So here is the situation. What you see here is two virtual environments, but they would represent Bob Sync's situation. Bob Sync is using a desktop, his corporate computer, and Bob is also using a Mac. And from his Mac, he most of the time works offline when he's in the field. From his PC, he usually works when he is in the office. So how can Bob synchronize his Windows computer with his Mac computer? In general, you could say, hey, I'm going to use Dropbox or another tool like OneDrive to get my stuff synchronized between the two. Now the issue here is that many users store their documents in the My Documents folder, right? And for Bob Sync, that is no difference. Bob Sync has his projects in the My Documents folder, and here you see Project 02 on his Windows computer. However, on the Mac, Bob has also his documents. Here you also see the projects folder, but there is no sign of Project 002, and instead there is a different folder called Project 001, which contains information from a different project. So this is what Bob would like to do. He would like to have his projects from the Mac synchronized with the projects on his PC. That without having to move the folders into a magical folder like a OneDrive folder or a Dropbox folder. How are we going to do that? With Syncplicity, we will be able to do the synchronization between my devices. So being Bob Sync, I can go to the website from syncplicity.com, and you see that Syncplicity has several formulas. You have a personal edition, a business edition, enterprise edition. In my example, I will be using the Enterprise Edition, but if you're more than happy to work with the 10 gigabyte quota, you can also work with the Personal Edition. So how are we going to do that? So when I created this account, I have installed the client. I'm not going into detail how you download and install the client, so we'll assume that that has been done. I have installed the desktop client on my Windows PC, and I also downloaded and installed the Syncplicity client also on my Mac. So I have an account, I've got some storage either in the cloud or on-premise, whatever you want. How do I do this now? As a user, you can do this, and also if you're working with an enterprise account, an administrator can do this for you. From the Mac, I could go to my user profile and I could add the documents folder to Syncplicity by just click here on the Syncplicity icon, add folder, and I would add this folder to Syncplicity. Very simple. And then I would go to my Windows computer, and there I could sync down that folder and merge the two folders together. How you do that? Well, very simple. You go here to your PC, you go to the documents folder, and you could say right mouse click Syncplicity, add to Syncplicity. Right. So either you start from the Mac or either you start from the Windows, and then you would synchronize the folder to the other computer. So I will start here from the Mac, and I would add the folder Documents to Syncplicity, and you see that the My Documents folder is now synchronized. It will start syncing, and when everything is synced, voila. And if I would go to this folder, you see everything is synchronized. If I now go to my Windows PC, because I have the Syncplicity client already installed, it says to me, you have one folder to sync. Because it's so clever, it recognizes this as a special folder, and it suggests me to store this documents folder in my user profile. So I'm gonna select sync now, and it says, whoa, hold on, you already have a folder there. Would you like to merge the two folders together? I'm going to click OK. And if I now look on my Windows computer and I go to the Documents folder, you see everything is being synchronized. And if I go here and look in the Projects folder, very clever, you see that now I have a Project 1 and I have a Project 2. And you see actually the files that were on my Mac but were not on my Windows computer, they are now being brought in thanks to Syncplicity. So that folder from the Mac, Project 02, is now here, and I can play the videos, I can work with the documents on my Windows like I would do on my Mac. And if I now go to my Mac computer, you also see that now I have a folder called Project 001, which contains the folder from my Windows computer. And also this will take a while until all the documents have been synchronized. Back on the Windows computer, we see something strange has happened. For the Excel sheet Sales 2017 and the Excel sheet Students, there are two additional files created. So we see Sales 2017 .bob xlx and .2 win10b. What happened here? Because the Sales 2017 and the student files were both on the Mac and on the Windows computer, Syncplicity detected what we call a version conflict. And in order to prevent that you would lose work on one of the two machines, Syncplicity has created two additional files, each indicating the device name on which they were created. So I know that this is the file that was synced from the Mac, so that will get version 1. And later we synced the Windows 10 machine, and that created version 2 win10b. How do I solve that? Well, actually, if I would open the two files, I actually also see a difference. For example, here the digit in February is different. So you can either use the default tools from Word or Excel to compare the two files and merge them back into one file, or you have to open the two, compare the difference, and make sure that you update the file that we really wanted to use with the correct information. So what I will do is I will open this file, update that with the latest information, save it, and I can now safely delete the two other files. And actually, in order to save some time in this demo, I'm going to delete those two files as well. Now, what is the cool thing? I can go here in this Excel sheet. I can make a change on my Windows computer. And let's say I'm going to cell B3 and I'm going to change that number from 3120 to 3200. The file will be saved on my Windows computer. Syncplicity sees that the file has changed and it will synchronize it to Syncplicity. If later I decide to go home and I want to work on this file from home, I can still do that. If I now later say working in the field or working from home and say, hey, this figure is not correct, it should be 3250. The only thing I need to do is just save the document, close it. Syncplicity will save that file in Syncplicity. There it goes. It starts syncing the file. When that is done, I can go back to my Windows computer, and in a few seconds we see the file with the latest version also coming in here on my Windows computer. If I have not done that yet, then so you see here I'm opening this document and I'm opening the old version of the document. This could happen, right? I'm too quick. I'm opening the old version. Then Syncplicity will say, hey, hold on, there is a new version available. It cannot sync it down because I'm opening, I've got this file locked. It's open in Excel. But when I click on switch this version, it will download that latest version for me. So Syncplicity really helps you to avoid making mistakes. I have merged my documents folder on my Windows, and I have merged the documents folder on my Mac, which is still syncing in the background. But with this, the most important thing was I didn't have to move any data. I could leave the files where they were. I don't need to move them into something like a magical folder. And if I want, I can at any time create new folders and add each folder into Syncplicity. So in order to show that how that works, I will go back and I will remove this folder from my account. So I'm gonna remove this folder from Syncplicity. What actually means is I'm gonna stop synchronizing it. It will no longer be synced. And I'm gonna do exactly the same here on my computer, my Windows computer. I'm gonna say stop synchronization. And here also on the Windows computer, you will see that the folder stops syncing. Okay. Now, this does not mean that the folder is gone. If I would browse to my Syncplicity, I would still see that folder. If I later say I do want to synchronize this documents folder, the only thing I need to do is click on the Syncplicity icon, click Manage, and I can then restore the sync very simply by selecting the folder, sync to this computer. It knows that this is a special folder and it will try to sync it back to the original location. So you can always sync, stop the sync and repair it. That's no problem. In order to show you what we can do additionally as an administrator, I'm going to delete the folder in the cloud, right? So it will be gone. And as an administrator, because many customers of ours do this for the desktop protection use case, as an administrator, I can, in the admin console, for each of my users, and I'm here Bob Sync, so I'm going to do this for myself. I will navigate to the personal folders, click Manage, and here you see the special folders. So I can not only back up the Documents folder, but I could also back up the desktop, which is very handy if you really want a consistent desktop amongst all your devices. If you say, hey, I've got a computer at work and I've got a laptop, I want to synchronize the two, you can do that by syncing the desktop. You can also add other folders as a special folder. If I do this, and let me first do this with the Documents folder, when I save this, then it will mean that on all the devices that I have linked to my account, which is my PC and my Mac, it will now enforce this folder to be added to Syncplicity. So when I now go to my computer and I go to the Documents folder, you see it already is starting to sync. It's actually, without me needing to do anything, my Documents folder is going to be synced. And it's going to do that on my Windows computer, and it will also do that on my Mac. So also on my Mac, all my folders here will now be added to Syncplicity. So what does that mean, the desktop protection? So when I go, for example, here to this document and I accidentally delete this document, gone, or I have a certain Word document that I maybe made a mistake, I can go to the browser client, and you see that also here the file is gone, but I can click on Show Deleted Items, and I have the ability to restore my files. Or for privacy reasons, I can decide to permanently delete it, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to restore it. And I also mentioned that I can work with previous versions, so I can click here on versions, and you will see all the versions that I have. Okay, so I can restore a previous version if I want. So with this, I have synchronized my two computers, and I also have a solution to protect my files. If I accidentally lose files, or if I want to restore a previous version, or in worst case, if my computer is infected by ransomware, I can easily restore my files myself. I don't need to go to IT. I do not need to open a ticket in order to have my files restored. So finally, a short summary of what we did today in our demo. With a Syncplicity account, we were able to synchronize folders amongst our devices. In this case, I've synchronized the Documents folder for my Mac with the Documents folder on my Windows computer. We first went to the Mac and synchronized the Documents folder by adding it to Syncplicity, and then we went to the Windows computer where we merged that folder with the existing My Documents folder. Any files that existed on both machines that were different on both machines will create version conflicts, and we showed you in the demo how to resolve that using the conflict resolution files. In the demo we also showed you that the best practice is to first stop synchronizing the folders and only then remove the folders from Syncplicity. We did that to show that an administrator can enforce folders to be synchronized using Syncplicity, either by just marking them as a special folder in the user configuration or by enforcing this via registry key. And finally, we also show the advantages of having folders synced with Syncplicity. As a user, I can self-restore previous versions, and I can also self-restore files that were accidentally deleted, which is actually an ideal solution to protect me from ransomware. Thank you for attending this demo. Bye-bye.